Chapter 99 Shizun's Third Weapon. That night, Moran slept propped against a high-tongue tree. There were many places in Xisheng Peak that bore traces of Chu Wanning's presence. If he'd wanted to pay his respects, there was none more suitable than Red Lotus Pavilion. But only leaning against this tree dulled the ache in his heart. Only here could he feel a faint connection to the world of the living. He had once been certain that taking Chu Wanning as his master was the greatest misfortune of his life, that it had been a mistake from the start. Only now did he see that the unfortunate one wasn't him, wasn't Mo Wei, but the one who stood under the flowers that day, had bowed and lost in thought. The unfortunate one was Chu Wanning. Jianjun, pay attention to me. He seemed to vaguely recall those words as the first he had said to his Shizun. Maybe not those exact words. It had been too long ago, and he no longer remembered it clearly, but he could still remember vividly the look on Chu Wanning's face as his lashes flickered up, bewildered and startled. How gentle he had looked then. As he lay beneath that flowering tree, Moran thought that if time could flow backward, back to the day he chose his master, he absolutely shouldn't pester Chu Wanning into accepting him as a disciple again, no matter what. Because the price exacted for that moment, for the flicker of those eyelashes, was the endless entanglement to follow, was Chu Wanning's very life. 2 lifetimes his Shizun had come to ruin at his hands. 2 lifetimes. Moran's throat worked on a swallow, and he closed his eyes against the threat of a sob. He passed a long while in an agony that felt as if a million ants gnawed at his heart before finally drifting into a fitful slumber. In his dreamscape, a fragment of memory he'd dared not touch since his rebirth rested free of its chains, raised its knife and carved out his heart. At that time, he had stood at the pinnacle of the human realm, and Chu Wanning, his spiritual core abolished, had been a prisoner in his palace. He had been targeted in recent days by several successive assassination attempts, the last perpetrated by Shu Meng and Mei Hanshur. Although Moran was too powerful to yield his life to them, he had sustained grave injuries. He'd needed to convalesce for over a month within the confines of his palace before he recovered his strength. Sichuan was a damp place, even more so in those days, and the pitter-patter of rain could be heard day and night. Moran stood under the shelter of the colonnade, his fingers pale as jade where they clutched the hem of the heavy brocade cloak draped over his shoulders. He gazed at the grey sky overhead, his countenance caught between mirth and madness. Even in silence, the twisted nature that radiated from him was unmistakable. He had been born with such a handsome face, yet the light in his eyes was dark and ruthless, devoid of warmth. And the longer he sat on that throne, the darker it grew. Footfalls sounded behind him. "There you are," he said without looking back. "Are you going to lay waste to Kunlun Tashur Palace?" Chu Wanning's voice echoed faintly in the grand hall. "And what if I am?" A pause. "Have you forgotten your promise to me? You swore you wouldn't seek Shu Meng's life." Moran's voice was even. "Shizun has come all this way and hasn't even stopped to ask after my injuries, or whether I'm cold, standing out in this wind. He only cares who I'm going to kill." "Mo Wei, I came to tell you to stop doing things you'll live to regret." Regret? Shouldn't you be the one who feels regret? You already shattered your core trying to stop me from raising Rufeng's sect. Now I'm going to raise Tashur Palace, and you're just an ordinary person without the strength to oppose me. Don't you regret not minding your own business back then?" Moran turned to glance at him over his shoulder, a flicker in his eyes and a cruel smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Chu Wanning, you're a worthless cripple, How are you going to stop me? What do you have left? Chu Wanning could find no words for a long while. Maybe because he really did have nothing left. A deafening clap of thunder suddenly split the skies, and rain poured forth, streaming down the roof and spilling from the eaves. Finally, Chu Wanning closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he only said quiet, "Don't go." Wanning turned on his heel with a swish of black robes. Against the backdrop of torrential rain and freezing wind and ash-gray skies, he looked at Chu Wanning within the hall. And why shouldn't I go? I already gave Chu Wanning his chance back then. You submitted to me for his sake, and I kept my word and spared his life in exchange for your body. But now, he's the one after my life. So tell me, why shouldn't I go? Chu Wanning looked at him in silence. Well, you've nothing to say? Moran scoffed. Go on, berate me, curse me out, say something. Chu Wanning, what happened to all that might of yours? I know Chu Wanning's your favorite, your prized disciple. He's earnest and sincere, and I'm no more than mud on the sole of his boot. That's enough. Chu Wanning's brows were knitted tight on his pale face, as if trying to suppress some emotion. It is not enough. How could it be? The sight of Chu Wanning's distress filled Moran's heart with a savage glee. Anger, ecstasy, hatred, and jealousy scorched his heart with their intensity, and his eyes glinted as he paced back and forth. There's no second chance, Chu Wanning. There's no second chance for him. I'm going to kill him, and I'm going to skin him for a rug, drink wine from his skull. I'll scoop his insides out, chop him up and stew him. You can't stop me. Chu Wanning, you can't stop me. The more he raved, the more enraptured he grew. His eyes reddened, he was frenzied, crazed. Snap out of it! Suddenly, a hand was fisted in the collar of his robes, and another struck him hard across the face. Chu Wanning was so close that Moran could see the quiver of his eyelashes and the shining tears in his eyes. Moran, wake up already! Wake up! I am awake! The burn of that slap on his cheek drove him only further into insanity. He glared at Chu Wanning's face, and his anger flared. I'm perfectly fucking awake. You're the one who's asleep. Are you blind? Moran shoved Chu Wanning away and tore open the collar of his robes to reveal the blood-stained bandages across his chest. Are you blind, Chu Wanning? He roared, jabbing at his own chest, and when even that wasn't enough, ripped the gauze away completely to expose the bloody mess beneath. Who do you think did this? Your perfect little disciple Chu Wanning. If he had aimed his long chang just a hair to the side, I'd be dead. So you tell me why the fuck I should let him go. As far as you're concerned, his life is alive, but mine counts for nothing. Is that it? In his fury, Moran grabbed Chu Wanning's hand and pressed it to his bloody wound. Didn't you want to stop me? Here's your chance. Go on then, dig out my heart. Chu Wanning, why don't you just dig out my fucking heart? Chu Wanning was silent. The tips of his fingers trembled, cold as ice. Moran glared at him, furiously, ruthlessly, the veins at his neck throbbing. Go on. He rasped, his voice raw. Dig it out. The torrent of rain against the roof was frenzied madness. Silence reigned. Neither moved. After an interval, Moran finally released Chu Wanning's hand and, breathing low and harsh, declared in a deep voice, Chu Siming and Meihan Chu's lives are mine. Chu Wanning said nothing. Go ahead and hate me, Shizun, he said. My life's already come to this anyway. Our lives have already come to this. None can turn back now, so we might as well press on in this darkness. I'm merely dragging some old friends along for company on my way to hell. That day, Chu Wanning had gazed at the back of Moran's black robes as he stalked away. He finally spoke. Moran, If you destroy Tashur Palace and kill Chu Wanning, I will end my life in front of you. I have nothing left to barter with, but at the very least, I can still choose death." When he heard those words, Moran paused. He turned to look over his shoulder, and a smile spread across his handsome face as he stood against that dreary backdrop of wind and rain. "So long as this venerable one draws breath, you'll not find death so easily." Chu Wanning only looked at him. "Let's not forget, even when all the blood had drained from your body, I still snatched you back from the gates of death. You'll be spending the rest of this life with me, no matter how much you disgust me." After venting his madness, Moran gradually regained his usual placid demeanor, cold and threatening. "My dear Shizun, just behave yourself and wait here at Xisheng Peak. When I capture Chu Wanning, I'll haul him back here so he can take a good long look at the god he frets over night and day, writhing under me like a wanton little slut. In consideration of our shared past, it's only right that I grant him the courtesy of full comprehension before he dies after all." But, counter to all of Moran's expectations, Chu Zongshe was still Chu Zongshe. 1 month later, Moran stood proudly before Heavenly Lake at the summit of Kunlun Mountain and did exactly as he said he would. He captured Mei Hanshur and Chu Wanning and bound them to pillars of ice, then used the Chenlong chess formation to induce the thousands of souls at Tashur Palace to slaughter one another as the two looked on. The snowy mountain, once pristine and majestic, was dyed crimson in an instant. Blood streamed into Heavenly Lake and seeped into the ground. Moran sat calmly before the palace gates, eating grapes fetched by the servants, and smiling as he oversaw the scene of destruction. "Mang, do you like it?" He glanced at Chu Wanning, whose eyes were glazed and unfocused. Chu Wanning remained silent and unresponsive, as if struck deaf. Pleased, Moran smiled still more affectionately and said, "Your cousin staged this show just for you. Are you enjoying it?" A faint murmur. "Spare Tashur Palace." Moran blinked. "What?" "Spare Tashur Palace." Chu Wanning's usually bright gaze was empty. "Let them go. Let Mei Hanshur go. I was the one who tried to kill you. Kill me. Leave everyone else out of it." Moran couldn't help but laugh. "Are you trying to negotiate with me?" "No." Chu Wanning's eyes were hollow. "I'm begging you." The darling of the heavens had said, "I'm begging you." Moran's eyes gleamed, the demon in his heart reveling at those words. Faintly amused, he gripped Chu Wanning by the jaw and forced him to look up at him. Yet, before he could speak, a burst of radiant green lit up the skyline. "What's going on?" His retinue had no chance to respond. A resplendent spiritual array flowed out over the towering summit to cover all the thousands of miles of Kunlun Mountain. And there, above the array, stood Chu Wanning, his robes white as snow, fluttering lightly among the clouds. A peculiarly shaped guqin hung in the air before him. It was black from end to end, with a tail that curved upward and ended in a flourish of blooming branches, each adorned with dew-laden haitang blossoms that glowed with a luminous radiance. This was Chu Wanning's third holy weapon, Juge.